Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday. Uh, well, here we are in the world of technology, which is great. But I was just joking around with Jeff for a moment that it just so happens that the power went out here in sunny Jericho probably about 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes ago. So I'm doing this broadcast from my car. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to talk to somebody who, our guest tonight, Jeff Goldberg, who, of course, is the founder of the Sales Pro Network. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ray. It's my pleasure.
Well, it's kind of a sloppy night, Jeff, and we've already got to a sloppy start with the power situation. But I've been so excited, looking forward to tonight, really, because I've been a big fan of yours now for many months, and watching you very closely on Facebook and watching your podcast. And I think I know you well, even though we haven't met. It's an amazing thing.
We live fairly close to each other, although everything looks close on Long Island, but it's not necessarily.
So your mission, and I know it well because I listen to your podcast. Your mission is to elevate the profession of sales. Talk to us a little bit about how you got into sales and why this is your passion.
Wow. How long do we have? I got into sales like most people by accident. I went to Baruch College in Manhattan, which is in an office building, not the best place to go to college, but I had zero direction in life, had no idea what I wanted to do. In fact, I have a reasonably high IQ, but I'm terrible at math, and I failed geometry 3 times in high school. And my guidance counselor called me and said, "You're not going to graduate. You got to do something." She suggested I take accounting, which made perfect sense to me. Debit this, credit that. And so she said, "You should be an accountant. Why don't you go to an accounting school?" And Baruch College is an accounting school. Again, I had no direction, so that's what I did. I got to Baruch College and I found out, first of all, I now needed a full year of no credit geometry, and college accounting is back to formulas, which is why I didn't understand geometry. So I quickly realized that accounting was not for me. And I ended up going only to my psychology classes because they were fascinating, and the marketing classes. And the rest of the time, I sat around in the student center wasting my time. I quickly realized that college was not right for me, at least not at that point. And I got a part-time job in a furniture store nearby where I was the customer service manager, ordering things, taking care of problems, stuff like that. And one day, one of the salespeople didn't show up on a weekend because he was sick. And the owner of the company came to me and said, "Jeff, go sell those people." There were some people in the showroom. "Go sell those people." And I looked at him. I said, "Dave, I don't know how to sell. What are you talking about?" And this is exactly what he said to me. He handed me a legal pad and a pen. And he said, "Walk around the showroom with them. Be friendly. Smile a lot." That's exactly what he did. He went, "Smile a lot. Write down what they want. Come back to me. I'll give you the price." That's selling. Now, I also have to tell you that my father, my stepfather, and both grandfathers were career salespeople, and never of them any made a real living, ever. And I swore I would never, ever go into sales. Except 48 years later, I'm still selling. Not only am I selling, but I'm training salespeople. What I actually do is I'm a sales coach and trainer, and I work with both individuals and organizations to help them increase their sales. It turned out that sales was really the career I was meant to do. I really had nothing else that I wanted to do other than to be an actor, a musician, or a comedian, and none of those seemed to be in the cards. And I just got better and better at sales. I was very fortunate, Ray, that one of my first jobs in real sales was with a company that's now long out of business. And if anybody's too young, they probably won't remember it, but it was called Encyclopedia Britannica. I was actually a door-to-door encyclopedia salesperson, knocking on people's doors, selling them $2,000 sets of books about 40 years ago. And that's a set of books that they could send their kids to the library to use for free. But their training was incredible. And I learned a lot from there. And it turned out I was very, very good at it. And shortly after I started, they started giving me management training. That was the beginning of my sales career. Sales and sales management is all I've done for the last almost 49 years now. And about 20 years ago, I went to work for a sales training company. I had closed down a headhunting firm that I owned. The bottom had dropped out of the economy in 2001. And a couple of years later, I realized I was on the way to ruining my family's finances. I was married. I had a first kid. And that we needed to do something. So I answered a blind ad at the New York Times, which turned out to be for a well-known at the time sales training company. And that's where I learned how to sell and deliver sales training. That was the job I'd been meant to do all my life because I truly love helping people. And I don't say that to be altruistic. I mean, I do get a good feeling from it, but I love getting paid. But I also love when people call me and say, hey, Jeff, I tried that thing you taught me and it worked, or I got a promotion because of something you said, or I closed a deal that I wouldn't have otherwise closed. It feels really, really good. And that's my passion. I love selling. And I founded the Sales Pro Network to elevate the profession of sales, because years and years ago when I first started, there were a lot of kind of scumbag salespeople who would say and do
Yeah.
anything. And for a while, I was one of them. And at the age of 31, I made a commitment that I would never, ever again lie to make money. And I decided that that was just going to be the way I was operating. And I think the majority of salespeople today are honest and above board and truly trying to help people, but there are still plenty who aren't. And most customers or prospects still have the opinion that all salespeople are scum dogs, that we're willing to lie, cheat, and steal and say and do anything to take their money. And there are some, but I don't think that's most of us. So my goal is to elevate the profession of sales, and the Sales Pro Network on Facebook is a place where salespeople can come and hang out, network with each other, ask questions. I have a lot of my competitors on there who are all willing to help. And as you know, every Friday morning at 10 a.m., I do a live interview just like you're doing with me, with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. In fact, tomorrow we have a guy named Craig, who's a brilliant coach who helps people be the best person they can be. And you've seen a bunch of those, Rand. I'm always happy when I see your name is there, that I know you're watching.
Jeff, I was going to tell you that. Let me tell you some of the places that we've been to together. Um, we've been to Massachusetts together many times. We have been to Vermont together. We have been to Detroit, Michigan on a very, very long drive there and back. And we're often together in the pool in the morning when I'm swimming. Um, these are all the places that I listen to you. And I've expressed this to you personally. And I want to tell you something, Jeff. And, you know, I was so excited to have you on, and I can see now that it looks like the power's on back in Jericho, but I'm afraid to lose you, so I don't want to leave the car, but it looks like the power's back on. Congratulations to PSE&G. Um, in any event, what I'm saying is that I had a job a year ago where I was making good money and fairly comfortable, and the way things worked out, it was an awkward ending, but I found myself in a situation where I was in a sales position in real estate, and you know, it took me a little while psychologically to get accustomed to that. And I would say I felt bad for myself for maybe about a week or two. And then magically, we were friends on Facebook, and we have some common friends like our good friend Valerie Heffron. But I started paying attention to what you were talking about, and I started to feel good about myself, and I started to feel confident again. And I can't tell you what you mean to me, Jeff. Honestly, we haven't met. Um, Aside from elevating the profession of sales, which I know is your mission, to give that confidence and to give people, to add a certain level of class to the profession of sales. Again, I can't tell you what you mean to me personally. And it's just when you feel as though you're starting something new, you look on a ladder, you look for rungs, and you look to grab onto those rungs. And it's a compliment, even if it doesn't seem as though you're a rung for me, Jeff. And I really appreciate everything you're trying to do with your network and in the podcast. And I obviously hang on your every word. And you mean a lot to me. So thank you so much.
Wow. So you said that it means, I don't know how much it means to you. I want you to know how much it means to me to hear you say that, because, I don't charge for this. I've never asked anybody to buy anything from me. I don't push my service on anybody. I feel it's my mission to give back. And it's really, it warms my heart to hear you say that. And you said something that's very interesting, that I help give you more confidence. And it's interesting because, when we're in sales, it's important that we all know what we do, what we bring to the table, what value we bring. And in each of our heads, we've got, well, here's what I have to offer. I help people sell more. I teach them how to get more appointments with decision makers, or have a shorter sales cycle, or close more business and do it more profitably. But about a year and maybe 2 years ago now, I had done a consulting assignment with actually a Long Island based company. It was a year and a half where they're a manufacturer of load balancers, which are computer hardware. And they came to me because they had been selling to the SMB market, the small to medium business market, for 16 years. And they said, Jeff, we want to break into the enterprise market, and we don't know how to do that. So I worked with them. I did a lot of question asking. I put together a training program for them. I implemented the training. And then I was actually at their offices on site every other week for a full day, coaching their salespeople one-on-one. And at the end of an assignment like that, I always debrief with management. What went well? What could have gone better? Is there anything else I could have done? And the interesting thing to me was, to a person, every single sales manager said the thing that they liked best about working with me was that I gave their salespeople more confidence. And in all the
Yeah.
years I've been doing this, it never occurred to me that what I do is I give salespeople confidence. So it warms my heart to hear that you say the same thing.
Well, and to be more specific, if you only talked about global things and you only talked about mental well-being, and if that was your only shtick, so to speak, I would probably have tuned you out. But you do a great job about talking about the global things, and then you talk about specific things. And I want to do a little bit of both during our time together tonight. So one of the things that you talk about that I really listen to is your idea about you got to calendar everything, right? You call it calendarization, right? So you need to put time on your calendar if you're in sales. And I would make the argument that that probably applies to anybody in any, whatever walk of life you're in. But particularly if you're in sales, you need to put everything on your calendar, right, Jeff?
100%. I have 4 different services that I offer, and one of them is private coaching. I do that mostly with individual salespeople like yourself, sometimes with small groups in a company, but typically it's one-on-one. With every single coaching client, with every training I've ever done, I always talk about this concept, because one of the things that comes up all the time with every coaching client, with every training client, in fact, a perfect example is training. When I do a full day of training on selling skills, or actually any other program, I always start out by asking the people in the audience, what's your biggest challenge? What's the thing that most prevents you from earning more money in sales? Because one of the things in training is, if you don't get people involved in the discussion early in the day, they're going to stay quiet all day long, and you want people to participate. So that's how I get them to open up early. And 50% of every single audience always says their number one challenge is time management. And as soon as that 50% says it, the other 50% of the room goes, oh yeah, that's a challenge for me too. So the concept of calendarization is crucial. And it's actually very simple, but most people don't do it. It simply means exactly what you said. Everything goes on your calendar, everything. What most salespeople do is they put their appointments on their calendar. I've got to meet with prospect A at this time, prospect B at this time, so you know where to go and when to go there. But I suggest everything you should go on your calendar. When I show an example, I actually show a calendar that starts at about 5:30 in the morning. Wake up, meditate, take a shower, eat breakfast, because you want to know where all your time is going. But if you only do it in your business day, you should still have every minute blocked out, including breaks, lunch, and travel time, and all the other things you have to do. The challenge with, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to interrupt you, Jeff, for 1 second. Here's the question I've been dying to ask you. When you calendarize everything, I've got like 4 email accounts. I don't know how many you have, but it's so easy to have different. So do you put everything on one calendar? I know you went to a show, I think with your daughter or something a couple weeks ago. Do you put everything on one calendar, or do you separate everything out?
No, everything's on one calendar in different colors. So one of the other services I offer is outsourced sales management. I'm currently managing 3 different sales organizations, plus my own company. I've got about 8 different email accounts that I have to work on every day. I use Google Calendar for my calendar, so everything goes on there. When I send invites, they're Outlook invites, and that goes on my Outlook calendar. But everything I transfer that over to Google too. So everything's on my Google Calendar now. My clients have access to my calendar through Calendly, and they can book time. So if I'm not constantly paying attention to my calendar, I could easily miss meetings that they've already paid me for, but everything has to go on the calendar. So here's one thing I never see on salespeople's calendars: prospecting time. And to me, that's the most important thing they can do on a daily basis. When I first get a coaching client, the first thing we do is work on goals and how we're going to get you to your goals and how to achieve and surpass them. But the next thing is, show me your calendar. Let me take a look at what you're doing. And I never see prospecting time. It's the most important thing you can do every day. Here's why calendarization is so important. We tend to do the things that are on our calendar, and everything else gets put off. Doesn't mean just because it's on your calendar, you're going to do it, but there's a much greater chance. And the perfect example is almost everybody who has children has a refrigerator, and on that refrigerator, there's a calendar. This one has to be at soccer at this time. This one has to go to the dentist. Like, who wants to go to the dentist? No one, except it's on the calendar. We got to go. So by having an organized method of knowing where to go and what to do and when to do it, you're far more likely to get stuff done. There are a couple of things that are important about calendarization, though. First one is everything goes on the calendar. Second one is build in breaks, because you mentally and physically need a small break every 90 to 120 minutes. And the third thing is you have to assign the correct amount of time to each of the activities you're doing. And here's what I mean by that. I use Google Calendar, and you can set up Google Calendar to either default to 30 minutes for every activity automatically or an hour for every activity. And you can, of course, change the time, but that's what it defaults to. I have mine default to an hour because more of my tasks take an hour or more than less. However, I'll give you the example that I'll use is when I write a proposal. So let's say I meet with you because I want to sell you sales training services. You're a VP of sales at a large company, and I have a first meeting with you, and I make a second meeting to come back and show you my proposal. I have to schedule the time to write that proposal sometime between the first meeting and the second meeting. If I just put it on my calendar, I'm going to have an hour at some point between the first meeting and the second meeting to write the proposal. But here's the thing. It only takes me 20 minutes to write a proposal. How do I know that? Because I've timed it. I've written hundreds and hundreds of proposals over my career. That's how long mostly it's just cutting and pasting and making sure it looks good and all that stuff. If I leave it for an hour, let's say 10 a.m. on Monday, from 10 a.m. to 11 to write a proposal, I guarantee you it'll take me an hour to write that proposal. Not really, because it really only took 20 minutes, but I know I've got another 40 minutes. So maybe I'll check Facebook. Maybe I'll call one of my kids. I'll find a way to fill that time, because I can waste time with the best of them. But I'm very good at that. I'm an expert at that. But what I actually do is once I put it on my calendar from 10 to 11, I go to the bottom and slide that up, and I make it from 10 to 10:20. And then the game I taught myself to play with myself is, if I get to the end, if it's 10:20 and I have not finished that proposal, I now have to go on to the next thing on my calendar. And I owe myself the time at the very end of the day, after I finished everything else, to now finish the proposal that I didn't finish because I wasn't focused enough, because I let something else get in the way. Shiny object syndrome. Maybe somebody called me that I didn't really need to, whatever the reason is. So having everything on your calendar and really working with focus and velocity, you're going to get a lot more done. The other thing to keep in mind is you are going to have to be flexible, because even though you plan your day perfectly, sometimes stuff is going to get in the way, and you have to be flexible and move things forward. And finally, never, ever leave today without planning tomorrow. You should never walk into your office, wherever that is, whether it's at home or any place else or in the car like you are, and start going like this. What should I do first? Because I guarantee you, A, you'll waste 5 to 10 minutes just thinking about what to do next. And B, it's likely that you won't be doing the most important thing. We tend to do things first because they're easiest or the most fun, instead of what's necessarily going to make us the most money. One of the questions I'm constantly asking myself is, am I doing the thing at this moment that's most likely to result in income? And in fact, I'm a visual learner, so I have signs all over my office. That's one of my signs. Am I doing the thing at this moment that's most likely to result in income? And it actually is right above this monitor where I work constantly, and I look at it constantly and ask myself that question. And if the answer is anything other than yes, I know I need to be doing something else. So it takes discipline, except if you want to make a bunch of money, and why would you go into sales unless that's what you wanted to do? Because sales is not the easiest gig in the world. Why would you go into it if you didn't make a lot of money? Well, if you want to make a lot of money, you're going to need to be focused. And something else to keep in mind, it's probably not going to be a 9 to 5. I've been searching for 40 plus years on how do I make a bunch of money just by working 8 hours a day like the average human does. Haven't figured that one out yet. I have figured out how to make a lot of money, but not to do it in necessarily an 8-hour day. Now, I'll admit this. I block off my Fridays. I work a 4-day week. The only thing I do on Fridays typically is I do that interview from 10 to 11, and then I can sometimes use the rest of the day to finish up stuff that didn't get done during the week because something else got in the way. But so I'm working really a 4-day work week, but it sure is not 9 to 5. It's 7:20 at night, and we're still working, and I've got more to do after we get off this.
Well, you're actually my second favorite person at the Sales Pro Network. My first favorite, it's not a person, but is the Beach Plug. So I know you. I see Beach Plug all the time on Facebook, and look, this is actually a prequel interview. I think that's the way I would phrase it, Jeff, because what I'm interested in doing is creating a podcast specific to real estate brokers and the real estate industry. I'm working on and people haven't set all that up yet, and I'm probably going to share this podcast in the group later on. But talking about, sales and the art of sales and so forth, cold calls still are a great way of. I know I listened to your podcast, as you know, and I know that you're not a big fan of doing cold calls yourself or making cold calls yourself, but I know that you still think that cold calls are a great way of harnessing business, right?
100%. Yes, I often say that I'd rather live in my car than ever have to make a cold call again. Now, I built my business on
Yeah.
cold calling. When I left the sales training company I was working for and opened up my own, all I had was cold calls. I didn't take any of their customers. That would be wrong. Not only that, I probably would have gotten sued, but I wouldn't do that to anybody. It's just I'm a big fan of always doing the right thing. So I built my business strictly on cold calling, but I don't like doing it. I love teaching it. I just don't like doing it. And here's why, Ray. I want every call to sound like this. So let's say I was calling you to sell you my services and I wanted to make an appointment
Right.
with you. I want the call to go like this. Hey, Ray, this is Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And you say, stop right there. I've heard about you. I know you're so damn good that you're going to get the appointment. And once you get here, you're going to sell me. So why don't I save us both some time to just send you a check right now? Except we both know that cold calls don't usually go that way. So yes, I do believe that cold calling is still one of the most cost-effective and time-efficient ways to fill up your calendar with appointments if you don't have enough, and if you do it properly. And there's many ways to do it properly, but most people simply don't. They're winging it. And I always say that amateurs wing it, professionals plan. However, my advice to any salesperson is if you need to cold call your rear end off, but be working on a bunch of other methods so that eventually you can either reduce the number of cold calls you have to make or completely cut it out like I did. I only make cold calls once a month for about an hour now, and I'm only doing that just to make sure that what I'm teaching people is still working. Other than that,
Yeah.
I don't make any for myself. But yeah, it still works well.
And you are, you mentioned something. I hear some of the recurring themes in your podcast, and you say that the best salespeople are always power CRM users, right? So you need to be in this day and age. You need to be a CRM user, and you know I've heard you talk about any number of different options. What's your favorite, Jeff? Who should we be using?
I'm a big fan right now of Zoho. Zoho's. I used it years ago. I had a partner for a while, and he brought it in, and I hated it back then. And
Yeah.
about a year and a half, I was introduced to a guy who implements all types of CRMs, and he recommended Zoho. And I immediately said, "Nah, I don't like that one." And he said, "When was the last time you looked at it?" And it was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years early. He goes, "Let me show it to you again." They completely changed it. It is beautiful. Zoho One, which comes not only with the CRM piece, but with the marketing automation piece and a lot of other things. It's brilliant. It's reasonably priced. It's easy to use. I'm not a fan of Salesforce. And if any Salesforce salespeople are listening, I'm sorry, but it's way expensive. It's bloated. It's challenging to use from a management standpoint. You almost always need to bring a Salesforce implementation partner in to make it work for your organization. I like the simple one. So I personally use Pipedrive, although I'm thinking of switching to Zoho for myself. Those are the two I like the best right now. Easy to use, very cost effective. But I just want to add in this point. I do say the top salespeople are always power users because that's part of what makes them top salespeople. They're organized. CRM is really just Excel spreadsheets looking prettier, and they really all are. And my ex-partner explained that to me. So it's how do you stay organized? When I first started out, there was no such thing as CRM. There were no computers. We were, we had little file cabinets, little metal file cabinets with cards in them, and that's how we kept things organized. But today, too many things are happening too quickly, so you've got to stay incredibly organized. One of the tenets of time management is being organized. So a CRM helps you know what you said last time, what you have to do next, and all kinds of things like that. Of course, it's a repository for contact information, but a good CRM will keep you up to date. And the other thing a CRM will do is if you're working in an organization with other people, I work alone, but in an organization, let's say you and I work in the same organization. Well, if you've got good notes in your CRM and you go on vacation, I can fill in for you. I can, if one of your customers or prospects calls, I can say, "Oh yeah, Ray told me this or that," because all that information's in there. From a management standpoint, you want your people to be using CRM because if you have to terminate somebody or they quit, you don't want them to take all that information with them. So you want to make sure that all that information's in there.
Now, you mentioned the correlation between CRM and Excel spreadsheets and so forth. You do feel like I feel like all of my life's problems can be solved with a spreadsheet. I'm comfortable working in spreadsheets, but I also know the downside, which is that it's a blank sheet of paper, and sometimes you blank out when you look at a blank sheet of paper. You don't encourage people to use Excel or to use a spreadsheet as their CRM, right? You encourage people to use an actual platform.
I do. I do. You know, if you're looking at $150 a month seat for a CRM, then I'd say go stick with Excel, except it doesn't have to be that anymore. I mean, there are free CRMs. I'm not sure if it's still around, but Sugar CRM used to be free. Of course, there was a
Yeah.
paid version too. Most of the HubSpot has a free version. HubSpot, which I think is a terrific. We just implemented at a company that I manage. One of the things I do is outsource sales management. We just implemented HubSpot. We switched from Salesforce to HubSpot. Very nice, very inexpensive. They have a free version. It doesn't do all the things that the paid version does, but yeah, the more organized I can be, the better off I am. And a CRM is prettier than an Excel spreadsheet, easier to use. I use Excel for some things, but not for my CRM. I need to stay as organized as possible because there's too many moving parts in my job, just like every salesperson's job.
Yeah. And I'm jumping around a little bit, Jeff, and forgive me because again, our power situation. It looks like the power's back on, but anyway, one of the things I wanted to ask you about when you make your sales calls, I fall into the habit of something that you actually dislike. I know this because I listen. When I speak to people and it's out of the blue and so forth, I fall into the habit of just as a habit of saying, "How are you?" This is Ray, and how are you? And I know you don't like that. I know you like to get right to the point when you make your calls. Do you feel as though there's a little bit of room for that, or do you think that people respond to just direct phone calls? What's your take on that?
So you're talking about when you're making a cold call to try to get an
Yeah,
appointment. Yep.
yeah,
So here's my take on it. The typical salesperson, which is not what we want to be, starts every call with, "Hi, this is Jeff. How are you today?"
yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't really care how you are today. I mean, as a human being, I do, but I didn't, the purpose of my call was not to find out how you are. In fact, I believe only two types of people call and ask you how you are. One is your mother and the other is a salesperson. Well, I know you're not my mother because I recognize her voice. And I know you're a salesperson because you started the conversation with, "How are you today?" So why not skip that? I'm a busy person. Get right to the point. But that is a regional thing. So here in the New York City tri-state area where you and I live, don't bother. Don't waste my time with "How are you today?" Get to the point. I'm a busy guy. Don't waste my time. However, you're calling down south, you probably need to say, "How y'all doing today?" Any rural area like upstate New York, "How are you today?" But New York
Interesting.
City, if you call me and say, "How are you today?" I'm going, "Fine. What do you want?" Get to the point. And
Right.
also, let me just add this in. Don't give me some, I don't know, can we swear on this? Don't give me some
Of course.
bullshit. Don't give me
Right.
bullshit.
Right.
Speak to me honestly. I had somebody who called recently. It blows my mind. This lovely young lady, I'm sure, calls me up and says, "Hi, I'm calling from your copier company. Could you do me a favor and go over to your copier and tell me which model you have?" Well, first of all, I knew I bought my copier at Staples, so I wasn't getting a call from my copier company. And what I said to her was, "Wait a minute. If you're my copier company, why do I have to tell you what you sold me? Don't use
Right.
some BS sales. Come on. Be straight with people." I think you heard me interview him recently. There's a guy named Jason Bay who I think is brilliant
Yes.
when it comes to cold calling, and he loves to preach permission-based marketing, which sounds kind of like this. "Hey Ray, my name is Jeff Goldberg. I'm in the sales training area. I'm sure I caught you at a busy time. If I could have just 30 seconds, I'll explain why I'm calling, and at the end of that time, you can let me know whether you want to continue the conversation or not."
Yeah.
That's very different from what I've taught people for years and years. And now I teach both methodologies, what I call slap them in the face marketing and permission based. And interestingly, almost every person that I teach both to says, "Oh, I like the slap them in the face marketing, but permission based is almost always going to get you a better result." The reason being, you're empowering the prospect in a way they're already empowered. You're saying, "I know you're busy and you can hang up on me at any time. So if you'll just give me 30 seconds, then we can get this done." And in those 30 seconds, you better be able to very quickly show them that you've done your homework and you've got something valuable for them. So they want to continue that conversation and hopefully set up an appointment.
Now, you had said something a couple of podcasts ago that really resonated with me, and I think, and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I think you said that the best salespeople, in addition to being power CRM users, the best salespeople are curious problem solvers, right? So these are people who actually try to solve a problem and put themselves in the position of the customer. Right? I mean, I don't want to. You tell me. Just elaborate that a little bit because that really resonated with me. So, am I right? Is that your thought on that?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, most salespeople are, let me fit my square peg into your round hole. Here's what
Right.
I've got. Here's why you should take it. Whereas the
Right.
best salespeople are really consultants. The goal for any salesperson is to climb the ladder from salesperson, which is the lowest rung. Not like that's a bad thing, but you want to get to be a trusted advisor. And consultants are typically, look, nobody pays me fairly large amounts of money to come in and solve their sales problems. So I sell four things: sales training, sales coaching, sales consulting, and outsourced sales management. Sales consulting means somebody calls me and says, Jeff, we've got a problem in the area of sales. We don't know what it is. Could you please come in and fix it for us? Figure it out what it is and fix it for us. And my funny answer is always, do you have money? If you do, yes, I can. So when a consultant comes in, they're a trusted advisor. Nobody pays me or anybody else a bunch of money unless they trust that they know you're going to be able to solve that problem, that you have the expertise and the caring to do that. So curiosity means that instead of doing what the typical salesperson does, which is, hi, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're busy. Let me tell you why I'm here and why our company is the greatest sales training and coaching company in the world and why you should use us. And then they throw up all over you. It's called showing up and throwing up, or throwing up on the customer's shoes. Whereas
Right.
the best salespeople are incredibly curious, because sales is really about three things, and it's not about the things that most people think it is. What most people think sales is about is being a great presenter and a strong closer. I'm a professional presenter. I present for a living, and I know how to strong close. I sold $2,000 sets of books 40 years ago when you could use them for free in the library. So I know how to do both really well, but that's not how I make money. The best salespeople always have three qualities. And the first one is curiosity. You've got to be a great question asker. And the second thing is, if you're going to be a great question asker, you've got to be a great listener, which most salespeople are horrible at, because we think we get paid to talk. I get paid to talk, but not when I'm selling. When I'm selling, I get paid to ask questions and listen. And the third thing you have to do is be a good storyteller. All great
Right.
salespeople are excellent storytellers. They tell a particular type of story, which I call a verbal proof story. It's a story about somebody else, like you, Mr. or Ms. Prospect, who by buying from me, by doing business with me, lived happily ever after. And there are reasons you have to tell that story, but that's what it's about. Being curious, asking you got to be a great interviewer and a great listener. Again, most of us are horrible listeners. We listen to hear, but not to understand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and you had somebody on the show. Forgive me for not remembering her name, Jeff, but you had somebody on your podcast. It's not only the verbal, right? Because we live in an age now with COVID and so forth, where a lot of people are doing what we're doing now with StreamYard, and you do your podcast with StreamYard. But you can't fall into the trap of thinking that your appearance and the way you dress and the way you present yourself doesn't matter. All that stuff counts when you're in sales, right?
100%. Look, it should not be this way as far as I'm concerned, but people judge you based on how you look. They make an immediate decision before you open. If you're walking into their office, if you're on a video conference like we are, look, why do you think it's 7:30 at night and I'm wearing a collared shirt? This is not the way I
Right.
walk around the house. On a day like today, I'd be wearing a tank top, which is an ugly picture for both of us, or a t-shirt, but I put on a collared shirt for you because I wanted people to think I'm a professional. If I don't, people will listen to me differently if I'm wearing a t-shirt. Should they? Absolutely not. Will they? 100%. In fact, I'll give you a quick one. I was working with Siemens Corporation up in Canada. I was working with their hearing aid division, and I got a call from somebody in Ottawa. I was working mostly with the people in Toronto. I got a call from somebody in Ottawa. Jeff, would you like to come to Ottawa and do some training for us in February? I'm like, oh yeah, Ottawa in February sounds just terrific. but she finished that with saying, right, by the way, if you do a good job for us in Ottawa in February, we'd like you to come to Hawaii in March and do a couple of talks for a customer appreciation event. Yeah, you can right. bet I did a really good job in Ottawa in February, even though it was freaking freezing. But here's the thing. When we went to Hawaii, they said, look, Jeff, you don't have to wear a suit and tie, come in business casual. That'll be fine. Guess what? I was wearing a suit and tie in Hawaii because the people would not listen to me the same way if I showed up in business casual or a tank top. My goal is, and you've seen my live podcast, the blogcast. Sure. I wear the same shirt every time. It's kind of like my trademark, and I'm really on a subconscious level hoping that people see the black T-shirt and think of Steve Jobs because he's one of my idols, and he always wore the black turtleneck with jeans and sneakers. That's the way I want to show up and do my job. So far, not quite ready, but yes, people judge us on how we look. In fact, they judge us on everything. If
Yeah.
we're too close, does our breath smells? There's something stuck in our teeth. How do are our nails manicured? Does our shoes shine? Do we speak too fast? They're judging everything because they're human. And if we
Yeah.
don't understand that the people we're dealing with are not just buyers or prospects, they're human beings with problems and issues and judgments, just like all of us, then we're making a big mistake. So, yes, how we look is important.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because, as I said, this is a prequel for a real estate podcast that I hope sometime next week or two. But point and I'm probably gonna find it's a point to go to flip flops. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is, by the way. So flip flops, and he does it very well. It's almost become his signature, and maybe he's successful enough where, kind of like Steve Jobs, he could buck the trend and do something that was a little different. For the you want to be, I don't need to return that's, I just want to say appearance doesn't matter, and appearance doesn't matter when you're in sales, right? I mean, is that fair?
So the last 90 seconds of you talking, you were kind of breaking up. I heard something about flip
Yeah.
flops and a guy who shows in that, but I didn't catch is what
Yeah.
fair.
Well, is it fair to say that it's safe to be traditional in the way you dress and the way you appear in a sales meeting? You want to play it safe, and you want to be wearing that suit and tie, and you want to go the extra step to be presentable in a meeting.
Got it. So I think COVID changed everything. I hope to never
Okay.
have to wear a tie again. Now, if I was going on a face-to-face meeting in a corporate environment, like I've done work for companies like Cisco Systems and Siemens and Aramark and State Farm and Citibank and large, well-known companies like that all over the world. They fly me around the world to train their salespeople. If one of those companies called me in, I'd probably still put on a suit and tie right now. Anything else, I might wear a suit jacket, but I don't want to wear a tie anymore. Don't need to. But I'd certainly put on a regular business shirt with a collar. I may or may not wear a jacket. I did a program down in Atlanta, well, just outside of Atlanta in January. It was the first time I'd been on an airplane in 2 years, the first live audience I had. I do a motivational talk. I'm not really a motivational speaker, but it's one of the things that service I provide. And they wanted a motivational talk for 150 salespeople. And I showed up with a kind of a more relaxed sport jacket and a collared shirt. I wasn't wearing jeans, but they certainly weren't dress pants. And I had some nice boots on. So I think today, because COVID did change everything, it may not be necessary to wear a suit and tie, but we still want to look sharp because people are going to judge us. The other thing is, and this kind of goes against what I'm saying here, you need to be comfortable. And I'm
Yeah.
actually not very comfortable in a suit. I never feel comfortable in a suit. Not that they don't fit well, and not that I don't think I look good in them. It's just I'm pretty sure almost everything boils back to our childhood. And I think I was on the way from some event and on the way home, and I think I tripped and fell and scraped my knee and ripped my pants on my suit. And my mom was divorced and didn't have a lot of money, and I felt horrible when I went home knowing that she had scrimped and saved to buy me the suit. So I think that's psychologically what's going on for me, why I'm not comfortable in suits. But so you got to be comfortable in what you're wearing, but realize that people are judging you. Again, it shouldn't be that way. But
Yeah.
I can tell you as a single guy, when I am in an environment with single women, I don't walk around and not take a look at what they look like and how they're dressed and how they're groomed. I think that's natural. Now, of course, I want to meet somebody who's nice and intelligent and funny and stuff like that. But I'm not a bar guy. I'm really not. But if I walked into a bar, I don't think I'd be looking around and go, which of these women is the funniest or the nicest? I want those things too, but we do looks first. It's human nature.
Yep. Jeff, there are a few things that I hear your voice when I'm working, and I hear you when I'm driving, particularly, and so forth. But one of the things that you probably won't like about me is that I have not set up my LinkedIn profile the correct way, and I know you're a big LinkedIn person. Just talking about social media and so forth, do you feel as though LinkedIn is maybe the best social media platform to generate business, or is it one of several? What are your thoughts on LinkedIn specifically?
If you're a consumer brand, I think Facebook is a good outlet. Obviously, TikTok and Instagram, great. But for me, for business, I think LinkedIn is the salesperson's best friend. I'm going to say it depends on what you're selling, but I'd say almost all sales, LinkedIn is your best friend, certainly for me. I mean, what you want to be is, where are your prospects hanging out? You want to be on the social media that your prospects are actually looking at. So I happen to love TikTok. And I know there are some sales guys like me using TikTok, and I'm considering doing that. But I've invested a lot of time in LinkedIn because that's where vice presidents of sales, presidents, CEOs, and salespeople and sales managers hang out. Now, there's lots of other people on there, but if you're in sales, you're probably on LinkedIn. So first thing is, you want to be on the social platform or platforms where your prospects hang out. The next thing is, you've got to be consistent. I am not a LinkedIn expert. I know several. You've probably seen me interview a few of them, and I have several I can recommend. Really, very top people. And I actually worked with a LinkedIn coach to help me up my game. I had about 700 followers on LinkedIn about a year and a half ago. I've now got well over 7,000 just by switching some very simple things that he had me do. I'll give you an example. I like memes. I just like memes, because they're cartoons mostly. They remind me of cartoons, at least. And so when I first started posting on LinkedIn, I was posting memes every day. The first thing he did was say, don't post memes every day, post something else. You want to keep your audience engaged. And when you do the same thing all the time, your audience gets bored. So one day I'll post a meme, one day I'll post a poll, one day I'll write something in text, one day I'll post a video. Mix it up. And also, you have to engage with your audience. The whole thing you're looking for is engagement. So when somebody reacts to one of my posts by responding, I want to engage with that. When they give me a like, I want to thank them for that. I want to ask them questions. The more engagement, the more you're engaged in conversation with people in LinkedIn, the more the algorithm spreads out your post. And that's the name of the game. How do we reach as many people as possible? The other thing that I do is, just like with the Sales Pro Network, I give generously. I'm consistently offering advice that companies pay me for, and individual salespeople pay me for. I'm constantly giving that away, little tidbits here and there, but enough that I kind of this might sound funny, but I consider it being like a drug dealer. Hey, try this. Oh, you like it? You want some more? Pay me. So it's right. Consistently being generous. And there are other very more direct methods for using LinkedIn to sell, but I like the content marketing method because it's so gentle, and I like producing content.
Yeah, and just forgive me for jumping all around, but one of the things I know, one of the main tenets, is that you like to say that you never want to leave a sales call or a sales meeting without having the next step, right? It's something that's critical. I know the answer, but just elaborate on it a little bit.
Yeah, you brought up my favorite subject. Every time I do a live program, and there have been less and less of those in the last couple of years, although it's picking up again, there's always somebody in the beginning who wants to come up to me and shake my hand, and sometimes it's several people, and, hey, I've heard good things about you. And there's always somebody who says this thing: if I learn one thing today, it was worth it. If I read a book, if I go to a seminar, if I learn one thing, it was worth it. My feeling is this: if you spent any amount of time with me and you only learned one thing, you got ripped off. But if you only learned one thing from me, what you just brought up is exactly the one thing I'd want you to walk away with. And I call that the best next action step philosophy. And it's actually very simple. It simply means that you never end a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. And you do that for a couple of reasons. One, it shortens your sales cycle. The typical salesperson leaves a meeting by saying, yeah, I'll get back to you next week and we'll set up another appointment, or whenever it's appropriate, or I'll write up my proposal and I'll reach out to you and we'll set up another meeting to discuss it. What that does is it stretches out the sales cycle, because let's say I'm trying to sell you something and we leave our first or second meeting. And I go, yeah, Ray, I'm going to do some work back at the office and I'll reach out to you. We'll set up another meeting. Well, let's say you're actually interested. I do my work. I write up my proposal or whatever it is, and I call you. Do I get you? Maybe, but more than likely I don't. Either you're not at your desk, you're at your desk doing something else, you're someplace else, you're busy. So I'm going to leave you a message. Then you're interested. So what do? You call me back. Except do you get me? Well, not if you called right now. I have my phone turned off so that it wouldn't bother us. I may get off this call, plug my phone back in, and find out that Bill Gates called and wants me to train the entire Microsoft team worldwide, but I don't know that right now. So we're probably going to trade voicemails over a couple of days, possibly even a couple of weeks. And then once one of us gets the other on the phone, it's probably another week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks before we can set up an appointment to get together and discuss my proposal or whatever we're going to do next. But if I'm in your office or on a phone call or a Zoom conference, and I just say, why don't we set up another meeting for next Tuesday at 3 to discuss whatever we have to do next? I'm shortening the amount of time in the sales process. I'm speaking with you again more quickly because we don't have to go back and forth. The other thing that does is I make sure I'm only working with interested prospects. And that's something I'm very, very big on. Salespeople tend to waste a lot of time chasing prospects who are never going to do business with them, but don't know how to say no because they think that when they say no to a salespeople, they're going to get an argument, which in many cases they will. So they avoid saying no, and they say no in different ways, like not
Right.
returning your phone calls, not returning your emails. Guess what?
Right.
That means no, at least for now. So by asking you, a valued prospect who's already given me some of their valuable time for another meeting, and you agree to that, you've given me some of your valuable time and you're willing to give me more of your valuable time, I know you're interested. You may not buy from me, but I know you're interested, and that's who I'm going to devote my time to instead of chasing everybody equally. Salespeople do that all day long. They treat every prospect equally, and they are not. If you're going to make a bunch of money in sales, you've got to have a way of figuring out who's more likely to buy from me and who's not. Who's going to buy from me more likely sooner and who's going to take longer, because you want to focus your attention on the deals that are most likely to close soon and most likely to close big, and everything else should be done later. We do that, Ray, by the way, because we're eternal optimists. Salespeople need to be optimistic to do their jobs because most of us hear no more often than we hear yes. Look, I'm so good at selling that people pay me to teach them how to sell, but I don't close more than 50% of the people I first meet. Well, I'll take it back. With coaching prospects, I close way more than 50%. But with sales training prospects, I close 42%. That means 58% of the people who I meet with tell me no. And I'm an expert at selling. If I didn't have a positive attitude that everything was going to work out and most people are going to buy from me, even though I know they won't, I would not be able to do my job. So that same optimism that allows us to keep working in sales blinds us to when people are saying no. A good pipeline management system is a great way to keep track of who's more likely to buy and not, so you can focus your efforts on those that are more likely and not waste your time. That's a big thing. We started by talking about time management. You don't want to waste your time.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, speaking of time, thank you. You've been so generous with your time. I have just a couple more questions about sales, but before we do that, I wanted to ask you, aside from sales, you're a comedian aside from sales, right? You do comedy on the side, and just talk about that a little bit because I'm fascinated. I know you performed at a place down by where I am in Seaford. I think it's Vintage. Mike's a friend of mine, but you do comedy in addition to your sales business, right?
I do. Vintage Lounge is actually an open mic that I go to. It's on Wednesday nights, but I performed at places that you would know, like Governors and the Brokerage and McGuire's and places like that. So I was actually on a call with my coach. I don't have a sales coach, but I have a coach that helps me in to be the best version of me. And we were talking about self-sabotage and how I always use humor in my training, because when you're with a sales team for 7 or 8 hours at a time, you got to do something to keep them awake. And I use humor because I've always been a funny guy. And we're talking about self-sabotage because on more than one occasion, I'm ashamed to admit, I have stepped over the line, and later on I get the beckoning finger from human resources saying, "Hey, Jeff, did you say this in front of the team today?" Yeah, I know I shouldn't have. It'll never happen again. I'm very, very sorry. I've never lost gigs because, well, actually I did lose one because of it. But usually clients understand the first time, but my coach is talking to me about it. And she goes, why don't you do something so you can say whatever you want and be funny? Like, why don't you do stand-up comedy? Right? This was a year ago. And I said, I'm 66 years old. I can't quit my job and start a new career. And she brilliantly said, why do you have to quit your job? Comedians work at night. So I took a class, and 7 weeks later, I was up on the stage in front of 230 people doing stand-up comedy. And it's really the greatest gift in my life, because I truly do love making people laugh. There's a much longer story behind that, but my purpose in life, according to a psychic healer, is to have a great time and help other people have a great time by making them laugh. And by the way, she said that to me before I said anything about I'm a funny guy or I use comedy or anything like that. And it's the truth. I love giving people the gift of laughter. I consider it a blessing when I'm, whether in a training program or anywhere else, when I'm making people laugh. In fact, one of my goals for this summer is to write a routine strictly about sales, which I'm going to market to large sales organizations that have annual meetings. I'll come in and do like 30 minutes of comedy, include some tips like the best next action step and stuff like that. So yeah, I love doing comedy. It's there's two places I feel most at home. One is on the stage, especially the comedy stage, and the other one's in the ocean, which is why I live where I live. I'm a block from the ocean.
Yeah, I'll tie back to sales a little bit, Jeff, and I'll tell you from my perspective. I have found that I have had some great relationships formed and also some business developed when I allow myself to be my person, and I allow my personality to come through a little bit. And one of the funnier things that gets people's attention sometimes, being in real estate and commercial real estate, I'll call people up and somebody will say something like, I'll be like, listen, I'm just calling you about your property and, your building, and I'm just wondering what you're thinking about it. And, they quickly go into politics. They'll say something like, well, these Democrats, they're screwing everything up and they're anti-American and so forth. And I'll always get a laugh around the people around me because I'll say, you know what? Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about, which is a joke because obviously I'm a Democrat. So just allowing that personality flair or whatever to come out. I feel like it allows me to work with people. Do you allow for some of that, your other profession, your humor to come through on those phone calls when you're calling people and when you're connecting with sales prospects, or do you try to separate it out?
No, I try very much to be exactly who I am. Now, I'm not stepping over
Yeah.
the line like in a professional setting, like on a cold call or doing training. But yeah, it's kind of like being married. You don't really know the person until you actually live with them. You can date forever, but until you're married, you find out they leave the cap off the toothpaste. Well, you might as well let them know who you are in the beginning because they're going to figure it out eventually. And I'm a guy who loves to have a good time. I love to laugh. I love to make fun. I just love to have a good time. So I let people see that. In fact, one of the things I do when I'm on a sales call, strictly when I'm selling sales training, is at some point I'm going to kind of jump up out of my chair and if they have a whiteboard, I'll run over to it, or even if they have a wall, I'll just pretend I'll walk. So here's the kind of thing I do with your team, and I start acting like I'm drawing because they need to see what I call the Jeff show, because that's what I'm doing in front of their team. Now,
yeah,
this excitement and enthusiasm, you've listened to me for a while. That's not an act. That is who I am. By the way, that doesn't work for everybody. Just ask my ex-wife. It doesn't work for everybody. But when I'm sitting down and talking to you, it's one thing, but I need to show them who I'm going to be in front of their team. So yes, I advise everybody, be yourself. In fact, one of the things I advise salespeople to do is every conversation you're having with a prospect, whether you're trying to make an appointment or trying to sell them, you should be making it sound like you're talking to your best friend, minus the profanity.
That's that. I hadn't heard that from me before. Maybe I missed that, but that's amazing. I like that. That's really, yeah, that might be my mistake, because once I get comfortable, I just start rolling off the words and usually it ends up well. But you're right. It's probably best to just leave that profanity part of it out of it. Interesting.
You pick and choose your times. Pick and choose your times. You might find this useful. So I had a prospect once who brought me out. I live in a town called Long Beach, for those who are listening in other areas. I'm on Long Island like Ray is. And this guy was in Hauppauge. It's not an end of the world drive, but it's about a good hour. And he brought me to his office about 4 times over a 3.5-year period and never pulled the trigger. And he called me up again, and I'm on the way driving to his office. And I'm thinking, why am I going here? Every time I go, it never results in a deal. And I keep getting, sucked in every time. And in my head, I'm telling myself, if this guy doesn't close today, after all these meetings, it's the same thing every time, I'm never coming back. And I'm starting to get angry with myself that I'm even making the ride. So I get into his office. His name was Jim. And I said, I got to tell you something, Jim. On the way here, I invented a new close, and I'm going to use it on you right now. And he kind of laughed, and he said, go ahead, Jeff, give it your best shot. And I said, let's just do this fucking thing. Now, right. I would normally never, ever speak to a client or a prospect like that, but he had used profanity in previous meetings, and I knew I could. And by the way, when I said, come on, Jim, let's just do this fucking thing, he went, you're right, let's just do it. Sometimes that's what it takes. But religion, politics, foul language, I'm a fan of all 3 conversations, and I swear like a sailor in real life, but there are some people who take real offense to it. Look, the podcast that you listen to, I've had a couple of people on that swear like sailors, and I've had members of the Sales Pro Network afterwards say, "Hey, you know, I had to drop out. I can't listen to that kind of thing." So you never know who you're insulting. Like, you might be the type of person when somebody says those damn Democrats, you go, "I don't want to work with you."
No, no, I laugh it off and I play it the other way, but I hear you on that. You know, speaking of
Look,
profanity,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I play right into it and I just smile it off and get a kick out of playing into it. But you know what? Speaking of profanity, if I'm allowed to use the word, how the fuck is it, Jeff, that you don't like turkey sandwiches?
Oh, there's somebody who clearly listens. Good job, Ray. I just don't love turkey. It's a dry meat, and I'm not a fan of turkey sandwiches. I like other stuff. That's so funny.
Listen, I can't tease you too much about it, Jeff. It caught my attention when I heard that podcast, but you know, I actually don't like chicken, and I'm probably one of the few people who doesn't like chicken. So I don't like the texture. I don't like the feel. I don't like the I never liked chicken my entire life. So I can't get on you too much about not liking turkey, but it did definitely get my attention when I heard that.
It's so funny. So if you want to give some context, I was really talking about sometimes you just got to say what's on your mind. You got to speak up, and
Yeah.
so often we fear telling the truth to people. And the example that Ray's talking about is I have a dear friend who owns his own law firm, and you know, on many I live a block from the beach, and on many summer days he would call me in the morning and say, "Hey, can you take the afternoon off? I'll come over and we'll drink some tequila and we'll eat and we'll go for a swim and we'll have a good time." And I love it's my best friend since high school, and it's one of my favorite things to do, hang out with him and just be on the beach. And he would always pick up lunch, and he would bring turkey sandwiches. And that one day he called and he said, "Okay, I'll come over. I'll pick up some lunch. I'll bring some turkey sandwiches." And we got off the phone. And I actually sat there for a minute and go, why didn't I just say, I don't like turkey sandwiches? He's been bringing them over for years and I never speak up. And, you know, on analyzation, I realized that I have a fear of people leaving me. You know, it
Yeah.
probably goes back to, you know, my father left my mom and blah, 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 blah. And I actually called my best friend back and said, "Hey, you're going to find this incredibly stupid, but would you mind getting me something other than a turkey sandwich?" And he said, "Why?" I said, "I don't like turkey sandwiches." And he said, "I've been bringing them to your house for years. Why didn't you say something?" I said, "Because I'm an idiot and I thought you wouldn't be my friend anymore." And he laughed hysterically and said, "You are an effing moron. There's nothing you can do to not make me have me not be your friend. And I'm bringing you a turkey sandwich anyways." And he ended up going to Jordan's and bringing me lobster. Speak
Yeah,
up,
no,
say what's on your mind. Otherwise, you're going to get a turkey sandwich your whole life.
I'll tell you, Jeff, as you know, as a big fan of yours, obviously I am. I enjoyed that podcast a lot because you know, you touched on the personal a little bit more, and I got to know you more as a person through that particular podcast. But look, you know, you've been generous with your time, and if I can ask you for one indulgence, it would be that I'd like to do this again sometime soon. And God willing, the power will be working, and we'll have all our technology. And I apologize to you for doing this from the car. I apologize to anybody on Facebook who might be commenting. I am just not in a position to see any of those comments and to read them to Jeff. But I will encourage you to please join Jeff's network, which is the Sales Pro Network. He's going to be doing a podcast every Friday, as he has been. And, you know, I make sure wherever I am, I think I missed a couple of weeks ago, and I was able to watch it later on. But I have it on my calendar, Jeff, and I look forward to it. I encourage everybody who might be watching tonight. And, you know, again, I'm sorry, everybody, just a little bit of a technical issue tonight with not having electricity. It seems to be back on, but that's another story. But Jeff, I
Ray,
want to finish.
all the previous podcasts, they're on our YouTube channel. So the Sales Pro Network is a Facebook group, but I also have a YouTube channel called the Sales Pro Network. Every previous podcast is there, and they're all recordings like this, and all of them are now being converted to podcasts so people can listen in the car or while they're swimming or wherever they want.
well, I reached out to you on DM on privately because I was giving you the side chick treatment for a couple of weeks there, Jeff. I was carrying two cell phones, and I was carrying an iPod, an Apple phone, and I was carrying the Galaxy phone, and I only kept that other phone, the Apple phone, because I thought maybe your podcast was only on Apple, and I was happy to learn that no, that's not true. That you actually are on Google and you're on YouTube, and anyone can find you on any one of these networks. So
Spotify, there's one other, Stitcher, I think is it. Yeah, it's on a bunch of networks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anybody's welcome to join the Sales Pro Network. I really look for people who are in sales, or even if it's just part of their job. If you're an entrepreneur who has to sell their services, everybody's welcome. Come ask questions. There's a lot of great people who are experts, not just me. I've invited a lot of my competitors. I've interviewed them. We're all happy to help. You can network. And as Ray said, every Friday morning at 10 a.m., either a training or a live interview. There will be one tomorrow. There won't be one for the next 2 weeks because I'm taking off for Greece and Rome starting Tuesday, and I'll be gone for 2 weeks, but we'll pick them up after that.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason why I didn't want to postpone tonight, in spite of our technology issues. I knew you're going away, and I wish you a great vacation. I want to close with two things, Jeff, that you always mention as a recurring theme. You talk about how sales is the one job where you can look yourself in the mirror and give yourself a raise every single day, right?
100%. That was something my stepfather, who was one of the career salespeople who influenced me, said. He said, Jeff, sales is a great career, and here's why. Every single morning, you can wake up, look yourself in the mirror, and give yourself a raise, and then all you have to do is go out and earn it. Brilliant.
Yeah. And the second part, or the corollary to that you always talk about, that and I'll just very quickly mention back what I said before. What an inspiration you've been to me personally, and you've given me a lot of given me a lot of food for thought and a lot of motivation and so forth. But one of the things that you also mentioned is that sales is the art of getting. I don't say art, but sales is the is it art? Sales is the art of getting things done, right? Getting things done, achieving something. It's not just doing a job that people sometimes don't appreciate or whatever it is, but you're actually getting things done. And you think about it from that context, how motivating can that be, right? I mean, just touch upon that, Jeff, for a moment.
Yeah, well, I think you're talking about the phrase that I end every podcast with, which is
Yeah.
sales is a game of making things happen. So get
There
out
you
there
go.
and make sales
There
happen.
you go. Right.
It's I love sales because you're taking control of your career. Even if you work for a company and you don't own the company, you're really you're in the Ray business. You're in the Jeff. I happen to own my own company, but you're really in business for yourself. And even as an employee, it gives you a lot of freedom. I mean, where else can a college dropout like me make the kind of money I make? And as any Jew would say, I do all right. So it's really a great opportunity to do the things I love: help people, serve people, and get paid. I love taking care of my 3 kids in a way that I probably couldn't otherwise. Any Jewish mom and any Jewish wife would want me to be a doctor or a lawyer. Those things were not in the cards, but I'm glad I wound up where I was, because I think it happened for a reason. I just I love the profession of sales when it's done well. If you're not doing it well, or if you're ripping people off, if you're that kind of thief, you're a scumbag and you don't deserve to be in sales. But sales is a profession where you can truly help people get what they need. And almost everything that you sell helps somebody else do something better, helps them save time, make money. So I think it's a great place to be.
Jeff, as I said, this is the prequel to our podcast on real estate. I'm probably going to share this. I'm sorry to everybody who I couldn't share comments. I'm sorry if my video came in choppy and my audio came in choppy. I'm using whatever cell service. Jeff, I really appreciate your time tonight. I wish you a very pleasant vacation. I'm sure you'll have some turkey sandwiches on the way on the plane ride out to Europe, or maybe not. And I really hope to have you on again soon. And I can't tell you what you mean to me personally. And you asked somebody in one of your questions in the group, who's your favorite sales mentor? I think by now the answer for me is you. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to come back anytime. And I just want to say, I did not ask that question in the hopes that people were going to say me. I really was hoping that people would give me some suggestions for who else I should be following. It was very lovely that people said me, but yeah, there's so many great people who have a lot of experience. There's some great sales trainers and coaches out there. I suggest everybody should be learning from. I still read most of the sales books that come out. I've been selling for 48 years. I've got 3 books on my desk that I need to read right now. One on NLP. This one just came out, The Transparent Sales Leader. Todd Capone's brilliant, and Subtle Words Itself. Sales is like anything else. You got to study it. If you're going to make money at it, it's a career. So invest in yourself.
Jeff,
most salespeople don't.
Forgive me for one thing, because I forgot this important point I meant to mention many minutes ago. You don't like the word pitch because you don't like pitches. You like people to just have genuine conversations, right?
I hate the word pitch. Pitch is an old style.
Yeah.
Madmen. It's the pitch.
Yeah.
No, pitching implies you're trying to talk
Yeah.
somebody into something. That's not your job. Most sales trainers won't say this. Most trainers will say it's your job to persuade and convince and talk people into things. I disagree. I suggest that sales is a conversation or a series of conversations leading to help the other person choose to do business with you. I'm really good at selling. I don't believe I talk anybody into anything. I draw people to want what I've got, but that's their decision. So really, if you want to be great in sales, learn to have better conversations.
Well, Jeff, as you know, I enjoy politics as a hobby. One day, maybe as a profession, we'll see what happens. But I think I nominate myself as the first president of the Jeff Goldberg fan club. So I don't know. I think I'm going to nominate myself and run for that because I'm a big fan.
Okay.
And Jeff, what can I say? Thank you very much, and have a great vacation. Have a great summer, and hope to talk to you soon. And we'll have you back on hopefully soon, and hopefully we'll have some electricity, and it'll all work out a little bit better. But thank you so much tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Ray. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. All right. Be good, Jeff. Thank you.
Bye-bye.